This is why
Tangent time.
That's why we need to record everything. The problem with
Tangents.
the Z
We're
is that it came out and it was good, and Nissan didn't further it until we got to the 370Z. But by the time the 370Z came out, there were better things in the market for the price. However, by itself, the 370Z was still 335 horsepower, 3,500 pounds, and
So a lot of
it-
people hated
it
on the
sens-
350, right? When it came out, as being
I mean,
worse than the 300 in every way.
because it wasn't turboed.
Right. That's my argument. Is that it actually wasn't worse in a lot of ways.
At the time, it was faster than a Mustang. Camaro wasn't a thing. Like, you didn't have a bigger sports coupe that had the potential to, lay burnout and fat stripes, and people stuck huge tires on them and went racing, and like the motor was actually still very good, minus the ring light issues. But like, and then they turned up the power, and then they turned up the power again. Like, there's 260 horsepower variants, right? Then they went
I
to
think that was
280,
the
and then
super early car, right? Was the 260 horse?
yeah, and then
Because then you had the up
they had,
rev, right?
yep, the 280 horse, and then they cracked 300 with the latest revision. And
Well, as I
then
understand it, right? So you had the up rev, which was just an intake manifold and a tune change. Like, it was a really minor update because a lot of people did that conversion.
yeah,
And then the
yeah,
HR was
right.
actually a different motor, slightly.
Yeah, it was different design, and it was a little bit more robust, and it's the one you want.
Yeah.
I think it's 0708.
Yeah, and that picked
But
up
then,
all the way to like barely over 300, like 301 or something like that.
yeah, and then that led to the 370Z engine, which was 335, I think, and then Nismo had a 355 horsepower variant.
But
So
honestly, having driven several of those HR motors and the 370s, what is that,
mhm,
VQ37? Is that
yeah,
what that one is? Those
yeah,
all feel
yeah,
awesome. Like, they're revvy.
yeah,
They
hmm
feel properly like high compression sports car motors.
hmm yep,
Now, on a personal thing, I absolutely hate the way they sound. But I realize that's a totally subjective thing. Some people
yeah,
love it. I'll grant
yeah.
them
I
this.
mean,
It's distinctive.
there, mhm,
And a lot of
it is.
V6s sound
I
like
think the
nothing.
issue that a lot of the yeah, that's the issue. The Mustang and the Camaro, if they were both straight piped with like 3-inch pipes, they would all sound like VQs because that is the V6 sound. And I think with the Zs, because of the culture and the people who bought them, they tend to straight pipe them. But like the
Even
firing order is
I
similar, the displacement's similar, the exhaust pipe is similar, and I think the
don't
V6s have an issue with resonance. I really do.
see. I don't know if it is though, because even stock pipe, like stock exhaust 370s, and the other VQ like Infinity Gs and stuff, even the not Z based ones, like
hmm
the front wheel drive ones, they have that
Yeah,
funky warble.
yeah. I don't know what that is. I
You know what
really
I'm
don't.
talking about? It's the 350 noise. Everyone knows it. When you hear a 350 go
Yeah, yeah,
ripping
yeah.
by, there's that distinctive warble.
Yeah. And like my Mustang never had that.
Right, and I've heard a bunch of
Porsche was
V6
never allowed.
Camaros and V6 Challengers, and none of them make
hmm
that warble.
hmm
To be honest, most
Yeah.
of them just kind of
Side
sound
note:
even.
the best.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, side note: the best V6 is the 1LE with the optional sport exhaust V6. It almost sounds Porsche like.
That's aggressive.
What?
I don't know that I agree with that. That's pretty aggressive.
You don't agree with that?
No,
I
not
mean,
not
we're
even a
also
little.
arguing about V6s here, which nobody cares about.
No. The Porsche is not a V6. All right,
What's your
first
favorite
off, let's
V6?
get that straight. Porsche doesn't use V6s.
Well,
There's an
I know
important
you use
distinction here.
boxers,
Boxer sixes
but
sound
you
amazing.
the right, but it's not a Boxer 4, which has a distinct sound. It's a Boxer 6, and with the way that Porsche has done their high RPMs for flow in the exhaust, I think I think in the way that needs or and the way that the engine is in the Camaro with the combined manifold, I think it smooths out the sound. There's no
Maybe.
rumble. It's just smooth pull. I
Maybe.
think that's what it is, honestly.
I don't actually care for the V6 Camaro noise at all.
Yeah,
Like, to me, so the
I still think
Nissans
it's a good car.
have the funky warble, and I don't really like the funky warble, but it's a noise. To me, the V6 Camaro and the V6 Mustang is
Yeah.
almost just as guilty of this. They make an
Mhm.
engine noise, but I don't know that I could assign any descriptor to it other than it's an engine noise. It sounds like an engine.
Yeah.
That's it. Like, I cannot think of a
Yeah, it
single
sounds like a
adjective to describe
V6.
it. What?
Yeah, it doesn't
Like,
have the chop and the rumble that V8s have. It doesn't have the screaming, sewing machine that four cylinders have. It's just
it just is.
it's
It's
kind of talking about
exhaust
like
noise.
tofu here. It's the base by which everything else is compared. Yeah,
Right? It really is. But no, I'm not saying the V6s
yeah,
have to be that way, right? I've
yeah.
heard some gems,
Hmm.
like the Yamaha SHO V6 and the old Tauruses, or even the
Yeah,
Mazda Ford Combo Duratec 3-liter V6s. Those make kind of a neat noise. It's almost all induction noise, but
that's
the,
that's the Mustang V6, dude. It's the Duratec. They use the same firing order, same head design. Like it's the same. It's just pointed different.
but why does it sound like
I
nothing
think
in the
you're hearing
Mustang?
exhaust manifold changes.
Yeah, that
I
could
don't
be.
know.
That could be.
I don't know. And this is distinctly NA V6s because turbos change everything. You got GTRs that EcoBoost Raptor, blah blah blah.
So that's another one that gets weird, right? So the EcoBoost Raptor
Yeah,
kind of sounds like garbage. Uh, every EcoBoost
yeah,
F-150 I've been in, regardless of factory exhaust, aftermarket, whatever,
mhm,
they all sound like garbage. The
mhm.
Raptor is kind
Right.
of okay, but not very good. And then the base F-150s with like an
Yeah,
aftermarket MagnaFlow or something, it's complete garbage.
it's just not that good. Fastest
Yeah,
fastest stink, complete
just
garbage.
not that good. Like, I'll grant that.
And then
Phenomenal
GTRs.
engine. The GTR sounds
Yeah,
like a 350Z on
yeah,
crack, which I guess makes sense because it's
it's
the
because it
same
is.
architecture.
Yeah, yeah,
Once again, I'm actually, man, I'm about to put the flame suit on. I'm not a big fan of the GTR
sure.
noise either. I'm just not.
Oh,
Yeah, flame suit
okay,
on. Like, I know I'm going to
okay.
catch the hell
Ooh,
for
how
it.
about this one? The JV6 Honda's J Series V6s with VTEC.
Okay, there's a sweet example of it. That actually sounds great. Even in the minivans,
Yeah,
doesn't matter. Sounds great.
yeah, yeah. Straight pipe minivan.
It sounds great though,
You're from the straight pipe your minivan. Yeah,
right? But
sounds
right,
good.
every single one of those you hear in any. I mean,
Um,
in the minivans, I guess you don't really hear it that much. But if you could
yeah,
hear it, like if you have one with an exhaust on, or like in Accords, or what was that thing, the
yep.
MDX or the
Any
Cross
swap
Tour,
Civics.
Swap
Yeah.
Civics, right? All of those. It's got a
Mhm.
nice baritone note. Sounds good. It's not ear
Mhm.
piercing like the B and K series motors are, but it's got a good noise. It's got a good wail up
Yeah.
top and all. It's good. It's really good.
Yep. I actually, and I know I said all the nice things about Chevy because I do think the 1LE V6 Camaro with the exhaust makes it sound the best. But my favorite V6 is the Honda's J Series
Oh,
V6s.
100%. Also, for the record, that is
I
aside from the heads, what's in the NSX, which we can all agree on, sounds absolutely
It's
amazing.
yeah, it's glorious.
And
Did they take the
in the
hybrid out of the NSX? Do you know if they did that?
the new one, not that I'm aware of.
Okay, I know they did it for the Motorsport.
And I'm sure there's somebody
But
that's
yeah,
going to come in here and be like, the first gen NSX didn't sound that good, and well, you're wrong. Sorry to tell you that.
yeah. Well, you're that's the type of kid to complain about a picture of a car that we took 10 years ago and say the quality looks bad. Like, come on, dude.
I don't know if you know what digital cams were like a decade ago, but I do.
Yeah, yeah. It's like watching the YouTube videos from a decade ago. Uh,
Yeah.
how do we even
Also, I
get
think
started on the V6? Oh,
Jesus.
no,
Tangent
we were talking
alert.
about we're talking about Yeah, we were talking about how Nissan doesn't make or hasn't talked about making an NA V6 and a twin turbo V6 model. And
of the
if they
400Z.
made an NA V6 model of the current of the 400Z or the new Fairlady Z, I think is what they're going to call it,
Yeah.
I would buy one because it's going to be a $30,000 car that makes over 300 horsepower versus a BRZ that's 228 horsepower. And I know that the twin turbo model is going to be a $60,000 car, and I just can't swing that. And if
The
you're going to
other
spend
thing,
$60,000, you buy a C8. You just
the
straight up
other
buy a
thing
C8.
to contemplate on that one,
Mm-hmm.
and this is just playing a long game, right? Is that if you were to buy into something like that, you're planning on keeping it for a long game, 5 or 6 years,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully. That
Mm-hmm.
as people start hopping up the twin turbo model, factory twin turbo parts
Mm-hmm.
are going to turn up in the used market
Mm-hmm.
and will probably be some sort of upgrade for the NA cars.
Yeah.
Right? The Z32s were like that. The Z31s were
Yeah.
like that. Everybody forgets about it because this was way back in the day, but that used to be the hot ticket, even for S chassis, right? S13s. A lot of factory Z32 twin turbo stuff was actually the hot ticket for S13s.
Before, I remember it was in, I think it was like 2001 model or edition of Super Street. They were talking about the SR20 swap. Before that, it
Yeah,
was the VG30. You do the VG30 swap to an S13, and it fits and it works. And you can bolt up the transmission and 500
right.
horsepower. Oh,
And not just that stuff, right? Like the Z32 twin turbo brakes, the big four
yeah.
pots. Well, I say big. Nowadays they're not, but
It's still
they were back in
two.
then.
Yeah, there's still 260 millimeters. That's decent.
Yeah. Well, these days that's not even notable
Yeah, yeah.
in the days
The
of
Honda Civic has
15-inch
those.
rotors. What's that?
Yeah, yeah. The Honda Civic has those factory now, right?
Yeah, like it's
I think it was 223 millimeters.
still it's the times.
Yep, yep. All right. Um, yeah, but on that ticket, so going back to even the price thing, like if once we start crossing $30,000, I still think the 1LE Camaro V6, even the four cylinder, I don't think the four cylinder makes enough juice, but that
four
still
cylinder
gets
is
the fun.
the four
What?
cylinder is the better choice though.
It is the better choice, and Randy Popes did it, and he bought it, and is happy, and it is the better choice. I still don't want a turbo engine. I want NA goodness because NA is romance. Sell the RX-8 and get a 1LE. I mean, the V6s
Uh,
are not holding value, to be honest.
no, they're not. And my
And they're
argument, and me and you talked about this when you owned a V6 S550, but I called that shit
yes,
years ago that the V6 was going to
yes,
die very shortly after the turbo came out because it
yes.
doesn't have a place in the lineup. Right? If you wanted gas mileage,
No.
the four banger does that better while making more
Hmm.
torque and a better mid range than the V6 could,
Yeah,
and having the ability to have like an intercooler, a downpipe, and a tune put on it and make huge gains.
yeah. Well, it would make 5.0 gains, and you get 400 foot-pounds of torque. Those engines
Right,
are
which
torque monsters.
the V6 had like no aftermarket gains to be had pretty much anywhere with it.
Yeah, I mean, you can make some power with them, but you're not going to make V8 power, and you're certainly not going to keep up with the turbo because turbo. And it didn't also help that Ford didn't care. This is the difference between Ford and Chevy. Ford didn't care about the V6, so you didn't get a sports package, you didn't get the differential options, you didn't get better suspension.
Right.
I had to glean all that stuff from a GT350 to get my car to handle good, which it did. And if you have a V6 Mustang out there and you're one of the few owners, good on you for fighting the good fight. Um,
You mean
well,
making
no,
bad
no,
choices like we do?
if you can't afford a 5.0 and you wanted a Mustang, you picked up V6. Don't be ashamed that you did that. And in some ways, the V6 is good. It's actually a really reliable motor. It's just not going to ever hold a candle to even Chevy's V6s because Chevy actually cared about their V6 market, and I could still buy Recaros and a diff cooler if I wanted in a V6, which is why it's awesome.
That is kind of sad that they never offered the performance pack with the six. That's
Yeah, and I think at 2015, I think Ford knew they were killing the 6 anyways, but had to offer it because they didn't know if the Eco EcoBoom was going to be good or not.
Well, because the initial reaction was not awesome from the public to
Right.
the idea of. I think everybody had forgotten about the 4-cylinder Mustang from back in the day.
Yeah,
Not
new
us,
market,
obviously, but
right?
not us, obviously, but the general buying
Yeah.
public had forgotten about four-banger Mustangs from the SVO days back in the 80s.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was kind of a thing. And, they had to kind of feel it out. It's the same thing when they brought out the EcoBoost in the F-150, right? For the first few years, there was a lot of whatever you want to call trepidation, I guess, in the
Well,
market.
it's but then E85 tune, what is it, Hennessy or who did it?
What?
It had to be. It's the same people who did the SHO when the Taurus came out.
Oh,
It was like, oh,
Livernois,
this is
probably.
kind of cool, kind of not, and then yeah, and then it was like, hey, E85 tune, this thing like 600 horsepower. And everyone was like, what? And now it's 600 horsepower with a 10 speed. I mean,
Yeah.
you have single cab F-150s with turbos who are taking down Challengers now. Like it's awesome.
Yeah, they make a ton of torque, and they make even big, with just a tune, and they make huge gains with like a catback and an intercooler.
Yeah. And then if you want to swap out to the slightly bigger turbos, then they make mid-range and top end.
Yeah,
And those V6s will just take it. They're part of the Duratec line. It's part of why I like the Duratec, and I enjoy it a lot.
but they sound like garbage. They have no soul whatsoever. They are appliances.
Thank you so much for listening to the Broken Axle Podcast. If you enjoyed us, please leave a comment and like and subscribe for more.
And if you want to help us out, we've got a new merch line. You can check the links below and follow our social media at the Broken Axle Podcast.
And you can find me on Instagram at nomadic.wheelman.
And you can find me on Instagram and Facebook as JustCan'tDrive55.
For the rest of us, hug your kids and call your mama.
And go bust some knuckles.